far, and this is at the time of this article being posted, which was actually yesterday, $900,000 US dollars coming from 121,000 sales. So I'm no expert in game sales, so I don't know if that is good or bad in terms of profit for units sold. But it certainly seems very good, and I don't suppose they would have released the second bundle if the first one was a complete failure. So let's hope it brings some success for them.
I was just going to say, Phoronix has published an unusual number of articles about games recently. I'm not sure if you follow the site very closely. One of the things I found today was a post from yesterday where he talks about the Steam client for Linux. For those who don't know the story, I think about 3 months ago, or maybe 5 months ago, there was a person showing that they had something in the code which suggested they were working on porting to Linux. And everyone was talking about it. It was in the press, and most of the sites were linking to the person in the Phoronix forums who was showing some evidence to support that. And I think it was Valve themselves, the company behind Steam, who were denying the claim and basically saying, well, don't expect anything. And today he finds again something in the code suggesting they do still develop some things for a Linux environment or for X server. So it does seem like they might not want to guarantee anything, but they actually do experiment, or at least try to test around and try and see if they have a potential market in Linux. And that's quite an encouraging piece of news. And maybe they'll even address something like Android as the processors get more powerful. And lots of companies address Android, which is based on Linux, but they don't actually go for all the different distributions of the Linux of Linux desktop. And it's also hard to charge people sometimes because they don't have the DRM enabled kind of online shop. So yeah, in any case, it does seem kind of encouraging. You have all these games recently coming to Linux, and I think it's because it's almost Christmas. I see lots of releases, and I pointed this out yesterday. We have lots of these things coming. And yes, and yesterday I put up a person who was yearning for some games in Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. I installed some emulators and put some ROMs for the person to play, and I find that I can put lots of people on Linux on the desktop and have them play games which have very good gameplay. I don't have the latest games, but even if they can play something like Worms, they'll be pretty happy with that. I see even Worms is kind of making a comeback now on the iPhone. I saw it yesterday on a person's phone, a friend's phone, and they can actually play these very old games. I've been called to fix a person's Unix computer, a person's Linux computer, not Unix computer, that I set up a few months ago, and the person was assuming it was something wrong with Linux. It turned out to be just a cable thing. So it's just really, we had to check the cables again, connecting to the router. So it was used to be a wireless connection, and now it's a wired connection. And it's pretty amazing. You can install, I'm not sure about your own experiences, but you can install for people a Linux distribution, put some games for them. Usually you have a lot more games by default installed with the distro than you do with, Solitaire and Minesweeper and all that sort of stuff. And then the person would just go on for months without any issues unless the person does something exceptionally weird. And they usually need a root password to screw anything up with the settings. So I've not had any experience where the person had any issues, with Firefox or with anything, or viruses or slowdown, or it just works fine. And this is why I'm feeling more confident installing it on more and more people's computers, because I just know I can handle as many as I have so far. I don't get complaints. So
I mean, my observation, I'm not particularly a gamer. I have a very long love affair with RPGs online, and that started with my experiences in the world of multi-user dungeons. But I've seen recently, I mean, I've covered quite a few game titles recently. I personally think it's quite important because a lot of people see the games as a sort of main doorway onto a platform, and I think you show people that Linux has got a varied and diverse range of titles available to them, and it brings people having a look at Linux and seeing if they can use it themselves. And No, I completely agree. I mean, I've installed quite a few games for people as well, and the first-person shooters, I think, are always the most popular ones because traditionally they're the ones that run all the consoles and the talk of the town. Most of the new titles are FPSs, but no, it's and they're very good. And you compare like for like. I mean, I certainly had the opportunity when I was running my old PC to compare like for like on a dual booting PC with Windows XP and with Linux, and the same software title on the two separate platforms, and the speed differences were just incredible. It was like having a different machine, even though it was on exactly the same hardware. And I think people haven't quite realised that Linux is more than a viable gaming platform to be exploited by people if a company or if a game producer wants to do that. So I think the more games that are coming to Linux and more people are promoting a native version of their traditionally Windows software creates competition. I think we're going to see some good things next year. It's my gut feeling. I was talking about a beat 'em up which I've been playing very badly over the last few days, which I will be doing a review very soon on. And it's to look at it plays like a console game. It's really really good, and you wouldn't think it was on a Linux platform, which traditionally hasn't seen that type. Well, I certainly haven't seen that type of game before. Sort of a 3D Mortal Kombat slash virtual fighter type game. So no, it's very good, and hopefully next year we'll see some other great titles. I'm personally hoping for World of Warcraft to get a native Linux version, but having said that, last time I checked it
Version 3 or version 4?
Sorry?
Is it 4? Which version of the game?
The Lich King one. See, I haven't played it for about 2 years, or is it about a year and a half? And I was playing it through
the first and the second. That was ages ago. I actually still have it on my computer, to be honest, but it's binary for a Windows.
Mm.
And I've been
playing
dragging it for. You can imagine how many years I've been dragging this on my hard drive now. It's really just I'm not sure why. It's a very small file.
But then, I mean, having said that, I recently wrote a review on Autoria, which produced probably the most readers for any one of my articles. I had thousands of readers to that, and it's a really, really cracking multi-online role-play game, and that to me sort of overtook my want for World of Warcraft. So, I mean, there's plenty of alternatives if you're prepared to look, and I think no matter how hard you look, you always discover a new little gem every so often, and I've written that regularly on my site, where you think you've seen everything and you think you know about everything and everybody tells you about the latest titles, then something like Autoria comes up and you think, hang on, why haven't I seen this before?
I'll ask a sort of a silly question. What's the connection, if any, between World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3? Because I'm talking about first and second, and there was the World of Warcraft, it was more network enabled, but also you could play the first and the second, you could play them over network, usually using the protocols from Novell.
I don't know is the honest answer to that. When I was playing it, I was playing through Wine, and I think it was the Lich King that I was playing rather than the Lich King, or like King or something like that. But no, I don't know is the answer to that. I sort of gave up on it when I found myself spending far too much time on it, and I moved away. But no, if anybody can answer that, I'd love to hear from you.
I've come across some recent, well, no, not so recently. I think it was about a week and a half ago. On Phoronix, they tend to have the only benchmarks you can find about on Linux, including benchmarks to do with gaming and graphics cards. And obviously, it's hard to compare platforms and to say, well, it's better to play on Windows than on Linux in terms of frame rates. Because it very much depends on your setup. It depends on your distro, it depends on your kernel, it depends on your graphics card, it depends on your graphics driver, because of course for each card you can have different types of drivers. But one of the things that was tested was one of the de facto Apple drivers. I think it's NVIDIA for a certain type of computer that's a high-class computer. And he was testing to see for a specific game and a specific resolution or a set of resolutions, what frame rate you can get in Linux. I think he was using Ubuntu. And Michael was trying to also use Mac OS X to play the same game. And he found that in many of the cases, you could play better in GNU/Linux than you could in Mac OS X, which is pretty exciting if you think about how famous it is that Apple has a way of trying to integrate the hardware with the software and getting things to work pretty well, even as far as the graphics are concerned, and getting a pretty decent frame rate. And that this actually does show you if you're a game maker, producer, marketer, publisher, porter, whatever, you could, if you look for